Elimination is another method we can use to solve a system of equations. The goal for the elimination method is to remove one of the variables by adding the equations together. We're allowed to do that. We can add the equations together. There are 3 steps involved. The first step says that we have to multiply one or both of the equations by a constant, that's some number, to obtain coefficients, the numbers in front of the variables, that differ only in sign for one of the variables. That means that we're going to multiply one of the equations by, or both of the equations, by numbers, so that either the coefficient of both x's or the coefficient of both y's will be the same number but have opposite signs. And we'll see how that works when we get started. After we've done that, we want to add the 2 equations together. We'll combine like terms. We'll add the x terms together. We'll add the y terms together. And we'll add the constant terms together to get a new single equation. When we do that, one of the variables should be eliminated, thus the elimination method. After we've solved for the variable that's left over, we'll substitute that number that we got into the original equations to solve for the other variable. It's a lot to take in. I would make sure that you write these steps down because you're going to need them, and we're going to see how they work when we do a couple of examples. Now, I want to start by solving this system of equations, and I want to use the elimination method. The first step in the elimination method is to multiply one or both of these equations by a number so that my 2 equations have one coefficient that differs only in sign. Now, the path that I want to do to do this will be first to look at my different coefficients. I have, for my x coefficients, I have 3 and 6. For my y coefficients, I have -7 and -8. And what I would like to do is pick the one with the lowest common multiple. The least common multiple of 3 and 6 is 6. The least common multiple of -7 and -8 is 56. 6 is definitely lower than 56. So I'm going to go with, I'm going to change the x's so that they have the same coefficient but have different signs. Right now they're both positive. I have +3 and +6. If I multiply 3 times -2, -2 times 3 is -6. They would be the same coefficient but have opposite signs. Now, of course, if I want to multiply 3x by -2, I have to multiply everything by -2, so that's what I'm going to do. 3 times -2, -7 times -2, and 10 times -2. Everything gets multiplied by this -2. 3 times -2 is -6x. -2 times -7 is +14y. And -2 times 10 is -20. Alright, just recap. -2 times 3x is -6x. -2 times -7y is +14y. -2 times 10 is -20. I'm not multiplying the second equation by anything because I already have 6x, and these two differ only in sign. One is -6, one is +6. So I'm just going to recopy my other equation. 6x minus 8y equals 8. Now once I've done that, I can add these two together. Just combine like terms. -6 plus 6 is 0. They'll cancel out. 14 plus -8, 14 plus -8, 14 minus 8 is 6y. -20 plus 8, Negative 20 plus 8 is negative 12. And I'm left with 6y equals negative 12. I will divide by 6, and I get y equals negative 2. So I've got my y value. I just need to know now what x is. In order to figure out what x is, all I have to do is take negative 2, plug it in for y into one of my equations. This is my third step. I did the first step, that was I multiplied my top equation by negative 2 so that my two equations had a coefficient, negative 6 and positive 6, that differed only in sign. My second step was to add the two equations together, which canceled out the x's and gave me 6y equals negative 12, which I solved for y equals negative 2. Now my third step will be to take negative 2, plug it into y for one of these equations. And I'll use the first equation. It really doesn't matter which equation I use. This is 3x minus 7 times negative 2 equals 10. I need to multiply together. I get 3x. 7 times negative 2 is negative 14, so 3x minus negative 14 equals 10. Well, of course, these two negatives make a positive, so it's 3x plus 14. I need to subtract 14 from both sides. 3x equals negative 4. 10 minus 14 is negative 4. I will divide by 3, and I get x equals negative 4/3. I have my two variables. I need to write them as a coordinate point. So I have negative 4/3, negative 2. That is my solution.